so much, everyone, for coming. First, I just want to apologize for my voice. I'm just getting over laryngitis. So thank goodness I have this microphone. If you have any problems hearing me, I'm trying to project as much as I possibly can. But first of all, I want to talk about how we got started with this project. Because as Matthew mentioned, this is our third book documenting small independent businesses in and around the 5 boroughs. We're going to talk tonight about our newest project, which is Storefront to a History Preserved. And basically how we got started was, I guess it was back in the 1990s, James and I, we're East Village residents, but it wasn't like losing the small businesses in our own neighborhood, because certainly so much had changed. We lived in the same apartment for over 22 years now, but it wasn't the loss of businesses in our own neighborhood that prompted us to begin documenting them. It was actually going into the outer boroughs, because that's where it kind of like really hit home to us, because we're just like, wait a minute, what happened to that great old storefront that had a great hand-painted sign? We went in there and we got some candy, and we spoke with the owner, and she made us laugh. She had a real gravelly voice, and then we would go back to the same neighborhood, and we're like, wait a minute, it's gone. What happened? The neighborhood doesn't look the same. Because I kind of like, to us, seeing in our own neighborhood the changes, like it registered, but it didn't register. You just accepted that they closed, and you were sad about it, but we just never thought to document them. So that's going into the outer boroughs, like in Brooklyn and Bronx, was really what prompted us to start photographing it. And initially the project was very visually driven, because we were always coming from, we had documented graffiti art, like the mural end of it, the beautiful murals that were done, especially in the Bronx and Brooklyn and Queens, and also, to a degree here in the Lower East Side. And we were always attracted to hand-painted signage, because graffiti is a very letter-based art form. So our interest was always like looking at these signs on these storefronts, and we would notice, they had great facades, and so we would find these great stores, and we'd be like, let's take a photo of it. It has a beautiful old neon sign or hand-painted sign in the window. Something struck us about it visually. But then what we decided to do was we decided to interview the owners, because we wanted to find out what kept the place ticking, what made it survive for sometimes well over 100 years. We wanted to find out the secret, because it seemed really fascinating to us, because we knew some of them were disappearing, and we were wondering why some would disappear and some would stay. So we kind of wanted to know if there was like a secret recipe or something like that. And as it turns out, the secret recipe, unfortunately, was that the owner owned the entire building that they were located in. That was pretty much the secret recipe for why many of the businesses that we documented are still around. In our first book, Storefront, if you go to the next slide, Storefront, The Disappearing Face of New York, this book was published in 2008, and we began photographing in the late 1990s. So the photos run from late 1990s up until, I'm not even sure if there is any from 2008, maybe 1 or 2, but most of them are older. And it was all taken with 35mm film, because digital cameras didn't even exist back then. So yes, that's our friend. She brought some lozenges for me. So we documented them with a 35mm camera, and what I did is I had a little micro cassette recorder, like one of those tiny little ones. And so I would go into the store and I would, talk to them about what we were doing. That we wanted to take a picture, and we had a couple of questions for them. And I would ask them, do you mind? I have this little recorder. And they were fine with it, because it wasn't like this big thing, like a big video, or it wasn't a big production. And I would just keep it low, and then they would kind of forget even sometimes that they were being recorded. And I mean, they had such fascinating stories to tell. And after speaking with only a handful of the owners, we knew that we had to keep on documenting these businesses because the stories that the owners shared with us were just truly spectacular. And that's what really got us going with the project. So this, yeah, unfortunately, this book, like I said, was published in late 2008. I mean, it actually, oddly enough, really didn't come out in the stores until January 2009, which is a very odd time to release a book, but we have a small independent publisher, and that's the way it works. So anyway, when we wrote the introduction in 2008, 1/3 of the stores that we had photographed for the book were already gone. And now, in 2016, it's well over 2/3. I mean,
the cover shot is closed. I was in Tribeca.
Right, that was on Chambers Street. And as you can see, since 1963, we picked this for the cover because we absolutely loved the font. You know, to us, like that Ralph's, like that S, it was just so special to us. Like, somebody told us that's a typographer, like, who emailed us after the book came out, and he said, you know what makes this so special is that whoever designed the sign didn't know a goddamn thing about typography. They just did whatever they wanted.
They didn't have any rules.
Right, they just did what looked cool, and we're like, exactly. So, at any rate, it's
that location is still empty today for the last 8 years.
Right, what happened was the owner was forced out because the building was sold and they wanted to make a high-rise luxury development. It was, you know, it was a low-slung building. It was only like, you know, I guess it was double height, so maybe it was really 1 story, but it was, you know, it was a very tall building, so I guess you could say it was 2 stories. But what happened is that it ended up being knocked down, and it's a big, you know, luxury condo now. And the square, you know, footage that's in the downstairs part is still for rent to this day. So they kicked him out in 2007, and it's been empty. You know, they built the place, and you know, everyone's living above it, but there's no store there. So it's quite sad. Now the next slide. This is a book called New York Nights. What happened was, while we were documenting these businesses, we found many that were primarily businesses that were like, you know, open at night, like bars and restaurants. And a lot of them had beautiful neon signs that really made sense to photograph at night. So as we were photographing things during the day, we said, oh wow, we really have to start photographing these things at night as well, which became a mission within itself, because to photograph something at night, we had to use a tripod because, well, for our other photography, it was just you know, a 35mm camera. We just held it up and took the photo, and I mean, before you could say storefront, we were done. You know, it was really relatively quick. But the night photography is a whole different animal. We had to use a tripod, and using a tripod, unfortunately, created this whole element of like people, you know, gathering around, and they thought we were like, you know, doing a movie, and all these people would come, and we really needed the 2 of us, because what would happen is one of us would kind of like act as the lookout and just be like, oh no, can you wait a minute, don't walk in front of the shot, and you know, this, that, and the other thing. But what we ended up doing was going as late as humanly possible. Like if the business was open 24 hours, then we would go at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, because there would be less people on the street that would bother us and interact with us. And plus, we got like that intangible quality, wouldn't you say, James? Something about like that special feeling that you get at night in New York, where, you know,
yeah, the streets are quiet, you have the waiter leaning on the counter.
Exactly, so you can see this was actually, even Carnegie is open. I'm not really sure what time they closed, but this was a Saturday night, so we specifically went on a Saturday night because we said we'll just go really, really late. Maybe the tourists will, you know, not be around. And as you can see, we captured that moment, and it worked out really well for us. But right now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk, if you could advance the slide, we're going to talk about some of the storefronts that we photographed in the East Village and Greenwich Village, because that's what Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation is involved in, specifically in those neighborhoods. So we're going to talk about a couple of the places that we photographed for our new book, and we're going to tell you why we chose this location and what makes it so special. Now, Florence Prime Meat Market, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this place, but it's a very small meat market, and it's actually, it's located on Jones Street by West 4th. And it's a tiny, tiny little block. You know, a lot of people have been on Bleecker Street, but they fail to like go down the street to Jones. So you may not know this place. And it's a really fascinating old meat market. It was founded in 1939 by Jackie Baldi, who was an Italian immigrant. And when he started the meat market, he is the one who invented the cut called the Newport steak. And the reason he called the Newport steak, which is basically like a very tender aged piece of sirloin that's from the bottom butt area of the cow, is that when you take the steak and you fold the two tips over, it's kind of shaped like a half moon. And Jackie Baldi was a smoker, and he smoked Newport cigarettes, and the half moon logo was on the Newport cigarette box, so that's how he named the cut Newport steak.
And it became Jackie O's favorite cut. She was a big customer there.
Right, Jackie O was a long-time customer, and loved their Newport steaks. And also,
they also do all the meat for the Archdiocese of New York.
Right, we like to think when the Pope had recently come here that he probably dined on a Newport steak from Florence Prime Meat Market. And the wonderful thing about this place is that everything is cut to order. So if you do go in there, don't be alarmed like if you don't see a lot of meat out in the counter, because they keep like most of the meat in the back. And they, you tell them what you want, they bring it out and they cut it right there on the butcher blocks for you.
Yeah, the butcher blocks are right in the store. And, we went there the weekend before Easter, and they had 4 butcher blocks set up, 4 guys cutting meat. And the owner told us when they first opened, it was a big Italian neighborhood, and all the mothers would bring their newborns to use their very precise scales to weigh their babies on. He's like, just make sure everybody knows we cleaned it afterwards very well. And, he said that's the kind of neighborhood it was, that people would just drop in with their newborns and show it off to their meat market. And if you go in there today, they still have those old scales set up, and the butcher blocks that are cut down in the middle from constant wear and cleaning. Right, the
sawdust on the floor. It's a really special place. And you can see the longtime manager, Alva, she does the window display. And
yeah, she's real proud of her windows.
Yes, we had photographed it. As you can see, it was around Thanksgiving, and they made a really pretty window display. Okay, so next slide. Now, this is a place that probably a lot of you are familiar with. This is Veselka on 2nd Avenue at the corner of 9th Street. Now, Veselka, I'm not sure if anyone is Ukrainian, but it actually means rainbow in Ukrainian. And yeah, as you can see from the window, it was established in 1954. And the fascinating thing about Veselka is that they sell 3,000 pierogies every single day, 2,500 potato pancakes a week, and they sell 5,000 gallons of borscht every year.
They employ 4 women, and all they do is make pierogies.
Right, full time. They're 4 full-time women that all just make pierogies. Tom Bouchard, who is a board member actually of Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation, is the 2nd generation owner of Veselka. And he told us great history about the store that actually didn't look like this when he had first started working there for his father-in-law. It was more like a little candy I don't know, like
a little candy shop.
Yeah, typical Lower East Side newsstand, candy store kind of thing. And it was actually his decision to start focusing on food, and he really turned the business around because it had been struggling, you know, in the candy store modality. And
now, he doesn't own the building.
Right, a lot of people think, oh wow, this has been around for such a long time, he must own the building, but he does not. The building is actually owned, and that's the group, by the Ukrainian Boy Scouts. And people think, oh my God, Boy Scouts, what, you know, is that like, okay, all these little boys and, you know, running around in their brown uniforms. But the Ukrainian Boy Scouts are actually like a group where you're a member for life. So there's, you know, older people, they're Boy Scouts, but they own the building. And what happened was, Tom Richard's father-in-law was instrumental in having them purchase the building. You know, back when he was just a tenant, he pushed for them to buy the building. And because he was, you know, an active member of the Ukrainian Boy Scouts, what they did is they wrote in the deed that they must keep Veselka as a tenant. I mean, that being said, Tom told us, you know, unfortunately, you know, rules can always be broken, but you know, he feels pretty good about it.
And they're open 24 hours.
Right, his son joined the business, and when his son joined the business, he was instrumental in having it open 24 hours. So it's actually one of the few places that where you can buy Ukrainian home food and get it 24 hours a day. Okay, next slide. Now, Greenwich Village Locksmith is just an amazing, amazing place. There's two reasons why we fell in love with the store. Number one, it's the smallest freestanding building that has its own lot number at 125 square feet in all of New York City. So,
it's like a triangle. If you're there, it's like the two, it forms a peak behind it.
Right.
So that's how far, that's the apex of it back in there.
Right, that's it. That's the whole store. I mean, there's no store front, like there's nowhere for you to actually go into. When you're getting a key made, you just, you know, stand right there, or you can sit on the chair. But first, I'll tell you a little bit more about the chair in a second. But second of all, I want to tell you the second reason why we found this place so unique is because of the interesting facade. I mean, it's hard to see in, you know, because this isn't being projected up on a wall, but in the book you can clearly see it.
These are all little keys.
The facade is made of 10,000 keys.
Oh my God.
Philip Motorello, who's the owner, who founded this place in 1968, he, you know, coincidentally does own the property. You know, that's why he's still there. Because he did purchase the property. But he's an artist in his own right. Not only is he a master safe cracker, and you can see the cast iron vaults outside the store, he specializes in cast iron vaults. And he's one of the few people that knows how to crack them.
After 9/11, the city called him in to try to open the damaged vaults and safes that were damaged in the attacks.
Right, downtown there was a lot of buildings that, you know, were still standing, but they sustained a lot of damage, and they had, you know, a lot of valuables stored in them, and they called him because he was, you know, he's able to get the vault without it being blasted open, which would obviously, you know, destroy any of the contents inside. And he does it like the old school way, you know, like he listens and then, you know, turns, yeah, with the stethoscope and everything.
So these are all little panels he made.
Right, so it took him 2 years to create the store. What he did is he made it off-site, and he welded each key in 4 places so it wouldn't be stolen.
Yeah, he said he had to use American keys because he started with Chinese keys, but they started to melt and fall apart.
Right, he said they would shock. Right, so he had to use high-quality American keys, you know, primarily made of brass.
And the chair's made out of keys also.
Yes, and he made that chair out of keys too, so that way when you're having your key made, you can sit down in the chair. And what makes this place so special...
This is on 7th Avenue.
Yes, sorry I didn't say where it was. 7th Avenue South, not too far in from Bleecker Street.
Just a little south of Bleecker on the right.
Yeah.
Yes, and Philip is not only is he a master locksmith, but he is the only one that uses the equipment. Like, he's the only one that will cut a key. And he said, you don't have to worry when you get a key made there, it will work. Because he calibrates his instruments every single night.
You got a key home and you got to pull it out a little bit, or it's just not right, you got to monkey with it.
Right, you know, get it.
He said that'll never happen with his keys, because every night he calibrates them.
Right.
He's really into what he does, and it was a pleasure talking to him. You would never imagine someone so into it.
Right, I mean, he really takes pride in what he does. So
it's a neat shop if you stop by there. He has all the old pictures.
And you can feel, you know.
It's like a display of keys and locks.
Right, people.
It's just a great place.
Customers of his travel around the world, and they bring them back like old vintage locks and keys and things like that. So he displays them. It's very nice. Okay, so next slide. Now, this is Fiacco's Italian Specialties, and Fiacco's, it's formerly called Fiacco's Pork Store, because that's what it was. It was a pork store. It was actually founded in 1900 by Eduardo Fiacco, who is an Italian immigrant. And when it's now being run by the fourth generation brothers. And when we went in and spoke with the owner, I said to him, "Oh wow, this making pork must be back in, you guys must have made pork back in Italy, way back when." And he's like, "Oh no, that's not true at all." And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, what happened was my great-grandfather immigrated here to the United States. He moved to the Lower East Side, and he went into a pork store one day to buy some pork sausage. And when he got home, he found a splinter in one of the links, and he was really upset. And he made such a fuss. He went back to the store, and he started yelling at the owner, saying,
yelling at the guy, "I'm going to open up my own store, and I'm going to put you guys out of business."
Right, you don't know what you're doing. There should never be a splinter in a sausage. So that's exactly what he did. He opened up his own store on Elizabeth Street, and later on they were able to buy the storefront on Bleecker Street, and that is why they are still there today. He said if his relatives had not had the presence of mind to buy the entire building that they're located in, there's no way on earth that they would still be on Bleecker Street, because the rents on Bleecker Street are like, astronomically ridiculous. In fact, for our first storefront, we had photographed like the large portion of the entire Bleecker Street, like from end to end, is actually fold-outs in the book. And I mean, there's like 2 businesses that are.
Yeah, Matt Umanoff is still there.
Right.
The guitar store, because he owns that building.
Right, and
the meat market.
Right, so
because the brothers own that building.
Right, so it's the presence of mind that these immigrants had to purchase the storefront, and that's what enables them to be in business today. Now, when you go in there, they still make the same, using the same family recipe. They make fresh pork sausage every day there in the store. They also sell like the dried salamis. The dried salamis are made. They have another location in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. That's a much larger storefront and has the machinery and everything. Right, the capability of doing the smoking and the aging process. So those are made, fresh there, but the fresh ones are made at the store.
They make great sandwiches. Like at lunchtime, you can get mozzarella.
Right, it's not only, you could be a vegetarian.
Over there.
Yeah.
So it's good. Yeah. And if they're big sandwiches, you can share one.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful store, and then they sell like other Italian goods as well. Okay, so next one. Okay, now Village Cigars. As you saw, this is what we chose for the cover of the Storefront 2 book, and there was a couple of reasons why we chose it. One, it's just to us like one of the quintessential, New York village kind of places. And we love the old signage, with the overhanging sign and everything like that. And it's very interesting history because You can't really see that well in the photo, but right there, there's a little mosaic marker that's in front of the store. And the mosaic marker says, property of the Hess estate, which has never been dedicated for public purposes. And the reason it says that is that this whole storefront, and actually, you know, going back into the building that used to be there, was the Hess estate owns the Voorhees, which was a 5-story apartment building located right here. And what happened was the city came by in 1910, and they were building the IRT subway line, and they told Mr. Hess that they were taking his building from him. Because that's what the city did when they wanted something and they needed it, they took it. And Mr. Hess was very upset because he liked his building and he didn't want to get rid of his building, but lo and behold, he lost the building. But what he decided to do was not sell the little tiny 500 square inch piece of property that they wanted to create the new sidewalk that they made when they created 7th Avenue South. And what he did is he put that mosaic marker in place to talk about the small victory he had against the city, that he said, okay, you got my building, but you're not getting my little tiny 500 square inch piece of property. And what happened was, in 1922, when Village Cigars was built, the owners of Village Cigars ended up buying that 500 square inch piece of property from the Hess estate for like $1,000, and they kept the mosaic marker in place.
Yeah, one time there was a webcam you could go on. It's not there anymore, but you could always check in no matter where you were. And you can see up there, it's that little white thing. And when we were putting our book together, Storefront 2, we actually got the Pantone color for this subway green. And that's what all our chapter headings are and everything throughout the book. It's like a subtle thing, but if you look through the book, you'll see, oh, it's green, that looks familiar. And it's the same one they used to paint the station.
Exactly, yeah.
And since we took the picture, like you would notice, but these are different. They've redone that. It doesn't say cigars anymore and candy around the front door. So.
Okay, so next slide. Now, we included this stone wall in because it has such significance, and in 2015, we were really happy to find out that it was finally landmarked. Stonewall Inn is located on Christopher Street, and I don't know if you guys know the history, but it's where the big resulting rebellion took place that lasted 6 days, which was really the birthplace of the modern gay rights movement. And in 2015, it was landmarked, and it was landmarked solely for its significance to the LGBT history, which is something that's really never been done before. So it was a very, very historical thing that happened. And we were fortunate enough to speak with the longtime bartender there. His name is Tree, who was actually working back when the riots happened in 1969. Tree told us that he was there that night, but he wasn't actually working. He was there just dancing with friends. And he said what happened was, normally, because he was the bartender there, that the neighborhood precincts would come in and they would raid the place, but it wasn't really like a raid. Like, it was just, he had to give them a big envelope, and then they would go away. Because that's how it worked. This was owned by the mafia, and they just gave the cops a payoff, and they let them do their business. But he said what happened that night was the neighborhood police did not raid the place. It was the vice squad. And what the vice squad did is they closed and they barred anyone from leaving the only way out, which was the front door. There was only one exit, and they barred it. And what happened is that they kicked everybody out that had ID on them, but they kept everybody that was A, in drag clothing, or B, in like lesbian attire. What happened was, there was a law at the time that if you were in drag and you had to wear 3 articles of men's clothing underneath your drag wear, otherwise you'd be arrested for impersonating and you'd spend 6 months in jail. And the same would hold true for a lesbian, that if you were dressed in a men's suit, you had to wear 3 articles of women's clothing underneath your men's suit. Otherwise, again, you'd be arrested for impersonating. So they held all these people there. He had an ID on him, so he was let go and he went outside. And he said that what happened was people got so upset because they wanted their friends, their friends were locked inside. And they started, taking parking meters out of the ground and like throwing it, at the window and trying to knock down the door. And they even tried to set the place on fire, but the vice squad, quickly put that out. And he said it was just, just total mayhem. And the whole thing, he said, was really, it wasn't about serving homosexuals at all. The reason the vice squad had raided the place was because they're the mafia members, which I have the names of them, it's kind of funny names. Jimmy the Chin, Harry the Horse, Frankie Shades, and Fat Tony. Those are the owners. They were selling watered down liquor. He told me, this liquor was like more like, really, he's like, really just water, basically. So they were upset about that, and also they were selling a liquor that didn't have a New York tax stamp on it. They were getting liquor from Jersey and other places, the mafia, and they were selling it at the place, extraordinarily, marked up prices. So that was really what the whole raid was about. And, and obviously the rebellion wasn't about that at all, but it became all about that. The place closed down afterwards. And the funny thing is that nothing ever happened to the mafia guys. The charges never stuck because they didn't have their liquor license in their real name anyway. And, it was all for naught. 20 years later, they reopened again, and then Tree started working there. And they had a great overhanging neon sign, by the way, that said Stonewall. In old pictures, you can see it. It was really
Tree's a big tall
spectacular.
guy, if you couldn't figure.
Exactly. Okay, so next slide. Now, this is a House of Oldies. House of Oldies is on Carmine Street, not too far off from Bleecker. And it was founded in 1969 by Bob Abramson. And as you can see in the window, no CDs, no tapes, just records. Bob told us that he put that sign up because he got so sick and tired of people coming in and asking, do you have tapes? Do you have CDs? And he's like, no, just records. And the fascinating thing about House of Oldies is that pretty much everything that Bob sells in there is brand new. That's because when he started this place, he went to all these record stores that were closing and going out of business, and he bought up their inventory. So he has brand new records from 1950 to 1990, and he put them in storage. There's a large basement where he keeps everything. He has tens and tens of thousands of records. When you go in there, it's like the place is packed, but if you need something that you can't see, he's probably got it, and he knows where it is. He knows where everything is. He's really amazing. But the price is going to be a little high. People complain to us, oh, the prices are high. Well, that's because a lot of it's like first pressings and really like mint, even their 45s, like you take it out of the sleeve, it's never been played. It's like, mint condition. So it's like you get what you pay for.
Yeah, we were talking about, like, is it all people like our age, like dads coming in and stuff that are nostalgic for vinyl? And it's like, no. Absolutely not. It's teenagers now.
Yeah, he said.
That's who's keeping them in business.
He said vinyl is back, baby. And he's like, the teenagers are what's bankrolling his place now because they've come to appreciate the quality of records that, they realize that when they're downloading, MP3, that it's absolute garbage. And they're, back on with the records. So it's really great. Oh, and he does not own the building, by the way. He rents. Okay, so next one. Now, Ray's Candy Store. We had to include, one of our local favorites. And we loved Ray's Candy Store signage This was actually created, that's Ray over there on the left, and that's Bob Arad, who was unfortunately passed away. There was the mural was done by a local artist, and Ray's has been in business since 1974, and Ray is like the typical, East Village kind of candy store, but what makes it special is that it's open 24 hours. And Ray's been open for 24 hours since the day he started, and he was around like through the Tompkins Square riots in '88 and like the tent city, and he said, in fact, when they had the big riots at the park, a lot of the people were his customers, that were involved in the riots. And, he remembers the night, distinctly, because that's his shift. He's always like, if you want to go and visit him, he's always there.
Graveyard shift.
Yeah, he works a graveyard shift.
What street is it?
It's on Avenue A, right across the street from Tompkins Square Park.
And it's funny, we were there at Christmas time, and they were giving away turkeys, and people were all lining up and getting dinners. And they would come over and just get a coffee from Ray, and Ray'd be like, oh, don't worry about it. He was just giving out coffee to everybody. And that's the kind of guy he is.
Right. It's a really, like this is the 6th Street, community center, but this is, in my opinion, the Avenue A community center, because he runs it like it's a community center, really cares about the neighborhood. And like I said, we've been in there countless times where someone doesn't have money, for a cup of coffee, and he's like, don't worry, you'll get me next time. And what kind of place does that these days? And, they have great egg creams, all different flavors.
Yeah.
Vignettes.
Yep. Popcorn shrimp.
Yeah. Fried Oreos. Okay, next slide. Music Inn. This is a great store. It's hard to get, I guess you can get some sort of sense of it, but not really entirely. But they specialize in like world instruments and all like strange instruments like didgeridoo and the zither and sitar. And Jeff Slatnick, who currently owns it, he was founded, let me see, I think it's 1958, let me check. Yes, but Jeff Slatnick, he started working there, and then eventually he took ownership. He knows how to play every single instrument that's in this place. When you go in there, the ceiling is like there's stuff hanging, like all different weird instruments. Yeah, weird African things like made of gourds and, or like...
The basement, there's like all these drums and...
Right, and he not only does he know how to play every instrument, but he also fixes instruments, and he gives lessons, and they have even an open mic night. And it's a really, really special place. And if you're ever on West 4th Street, I encourage you to stop in. Jeff is a wonderful guy, and super knowledgeable about all these weird instruments from around the world. Okay, next slide. Now, Parisi Bakery. A lot of people may not really know this place because it's really like where they do all the baking of the bread. Parisi's Bakery has actually been in business since 1903. It's located on Elizabeth Street near Houston, but they do all the baking on the premises there, and you go by in the morning and you can just smell the bread, and it's just so wonderful. But you can go in and buy a loaf of bread, like they'll let you. You kind of have to know, like you probably, if you didn't know, you may not think that you could, but you definitely can. And it's just so fresh and tasty. And when we spoke with the owner, he told us that, ever since he was a young boy, he's always been into the bread. He would fall asleep on top of the sacks of flour as a young little boy. And what happened was that he ended up quitting school to help out his father because his father needed help in the business, and he hasn't left ever since. And he said that he can just like look at, you know, the dough and know that it's right. Like he doesn't have to touch it or anything. Like he can just, you know, if it's, you know, mixing away, he can just look at it and be like, yeah.
Frank Sinatra was one of his best customers.
Yeah, Frank Sinatra actually had bread flown in there when he moved to Palm Springs.
The retail front's on Mott Street. That's in Elizabeth, right?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Mom's where you go if you want like a sandwich or.
Yeah,
Right.
You can buy all the bread at the 198.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And the actually the Mott Street Bakery has a coal-fired oven in its basement, but it's no longer functioning. All the bread baking is done at this location. They own the storefront. They do not own that storefront on Mott Street.
They would airmail bread to Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, and Andy Rooney was also a very
Loved the bread.
famous customer of theirs. Okay, next. Okay, now, this is the last slide of the night, and the reason why I included it is we're going to have like a little fun with you guys. We're going to be doing a little giveaway, but first I'm going to tell you about Cornelia Street Cafe. It was founded in 1977, and it's, you know, has all-day dining and also performance space downstairs. And what they became known for is that they have this thing where you can bring in a piece of music like that had to be worked on like that week, and then everybody that would be, you know, at the place would like give their 2 cents about it, like. And then you would go back with that piece of music that's hopefully been worked on and improved and perform it the following week. And what we're going to do is a little giveaway. We have a little poster, right, of the book cover. And the question is, and if it's too hard, I mean, I actually have an alternate question, but who was a famous musician that performed here at Cornelia Street Cafe and also, you know, took advantage of that, you know,
songwriting workshop.
The songwriting workshop.
Is it Bob Dylan?
No, it is not Bob Dylan.
Sorry.
No.
Laura Nero?
No.
No, good one. Good one.
Suzanne Vega?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
That's how Now, Bob Dylan actually was a customer of a place that we talked about, which was Music Inn. And he was actually a very frequent customer there. He actually lived a few doors down on positively 4th Street. And when you go into Music Inn all the time, you know, Jeff, you know, knew him. And
yeah, Matt Humanoff, he was a big customer.
Yes.
And Matt has a funny story, if you want to just tell it quick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Matt Humanoff guitars is in our first storefront club, but it is kind of a funny story about Bob Dylan, that one day a guy came in, like a teenager, and he had just, you know, started playing the guitar and just strumming it and stuff like that. And then Bob Dylan walked in and started playing the guitar next to this young teenager.
Yeah, and that's funny. He's like, I was going to throw a teenager out because he really didn't belong on the guitars. Because, like, if you know Matt Humanoff, he's very opinionated about his guitars, and he only likes like people who know what they're doing with them and stuff. And he's like, I was going to throw the kid out, but Bob Dylan came in and started playing next to him.
Right. So, you know, I just let the kid play, and then the kid left, and then about 3 weeks later, he said that the kid came back in, and he was, I'm so excited, you're not going to believe who I saw in the park, and he had seen.
And Matt Humanoff's like, it's some nobody.
Right. And like, little did he know that he was playing.
Knucklehead, you were playing next to Bob Dylan. and just the way Matt tells it, if you know the guy,
it's a really.
He's really New York kind of. It's like, oh, this knucklehead didn't even know he's playing next to him.
Exactly. And just, like I said, I mean, there's countless stories like this. And I mean, we hope you enjoyed our little presentation, and I'd love to have any questions. Be happy to answer them if anyone has any questions. Yes.